Going down this weekend, we have UFC Fight Night Lewis versus Teixeira. And in this video, I will be giving you my predictions along with a breakdown for every single fight on the card. And listen, man, we got a sneaky good fight night going down in Nashville, Tennessee, dog. We have an outstanding fight night on tap because there are some really, really good stylistic matchups. And not only that, we have the OGs, right? We got Derrick Lewis, Wonderboy Thompson, Calvin Kattar, who are taking on some very, very dangerous up-and-coming guys in their weight classes. Always interesting to see if the OG can teach the young gun a thing or two. We're going to find out come Saturday night because they are some interesting matchups. And not only that, we have some great stylistic clashes all over the card to where I had a hard time kind of deciding who I'm going to pick on some of these fights because I truly could see them going either way. Excited to break this one down, man. Let's hop into it. First fight of the night. We have Fatima Kline versus Melissa Martinez. Very straightforward matchup here. Listen, Melissa Martinez, she's probably the better overall striker, right? I know she's a little bit shorter and smaller in the women's strawweight division, but she's pretty good on the feet, right? She's game, she's scrappy, and in terms of the offensive grappling, we've seen some decent things, but when it comes to the defensive grappling, that is where I have a lot of questions. And when I have questions on that, coming into a fight with one of the more well-rounded grapplers in women's MMA on the rise right now, that would be Fatima Kline. Excellent jiu-jitsu skills. Her wrestling ties in very nicely, and the way that she is able to dip underneath, get in on your hips, and take you down, it is, I think, going to be an absolute nightmare all night long for Melissa Martinez in this fight. And keep in mind, the only loss that we've seen from Fatima in her career was to Jasmine Jasdavicius. Big whoop, right? We've seen how good Jasmine is. I mean, she's Canada's best bet for a next GSP dog, right? I mean, since none of the men want to step the hell up, right? I know Mike Malak just got a big win, but Jasmine, I mean, she's like the face of Canadian MMA right now, right? So that is the only loss on the side of Fatima Kline. And then we have a nasty ground and pound finish that she's coming off of here against Victoria Dudakova. I was wildly impressed with this performance. So not only does Fatima have very good control when she's able to get you down, but when she gets into those top positions, yeah, you're obviously worried about the submission threat. So you're not trying to, create too many mistakes as you're trying to get back to your feet. And then she'll just bang you up with some nasty elbows, some nasty ground and pound. I just think that this is a bad matchup for Melissa Martinez. I think Fatima Kline's ground game is going to be too much for Melissa to handle in this fight. I'm going to say that Fatima is able to get her down in round number 2 and get to her back and find a rear naked choke. But either way, I think maybe Melissa's just that damn tough to where she's able to grit it out. But if she can keep it on the feet, she gives herself a chance. I just don't think that's very likely here considering how good the ground skills are of Fatima Kline. She's absolutely a specialist. I think Kline is able to find a submission against Melissa in this fight. Next, we got Mike Davis versus Mitch Ramirez. I'm not going to lie, I was kind of surprised when the UFC booked this matchup because Mike Davis, to me, I mean, he was a part of not just one of the greatest Contender Series fights I've ever seen, but one of the greatest fights, period, that I've ever seen on the Contender Series against Sadiq Yusuff, to where we got to see a lot about Mike Davis, right? And ever since coming into the UFC, this guy just continues to grow in terms of his skill set. He adds something new, it seems, every time we see him fight. He's got outstanding boxing, very good overall striking, high fight IQ, and he's added in a very well-rounded ground game. Good jiu-jitsu skills, solid wrestling, and we've seen that throughout his career, right? We know about the KO over Thomas Gifford, but Mike Davis was very inactive for a while, right? Beat Mason Jones, which that's aged pretty well. Beat Slava Claus, which, Slava's shown that he could be beaten recently. He's getting beat by everybody. But then he goes out there, subs Natan Levy, and he's coming off of that loss to Faraz Ziam, to where there were fighters complaining about paint or something in the locker room, and I don't know what the hell was going on there. But what I can tell you, that was a very out-of-character performance from Mike Davis. To me, that wasn't Mike Davis that showed up in there. But I thought Ziam was going to be a lot for Mike to handle in that fight. But don't take anything away from Ziam. That guy's a serious issue in the lightweight division. Tall, lanky striker. But we got to see, listen, That wasn't Mike Davis at his best. And I'm telling you right now, Mike Davis is going to come back with a point to prove. He's the better striker in this matchup because Mitch Ramirez, he's gritty, moves forwards, got a pretty, well-rounded game, right? We saw him. He's able to finish guys on the feet. He's got some powerful leg kicks, right? But I don't like what we saw here, right? Again, I know this is Carlos Prates. He was able to, I believe, get a takedown, which that was pretty impressive. Gets finished by Prates, goes out there on LFA, gets a finish, comes back into the UFC, gets leg kick TKO'd by Thiago Moises, right? And we never know what Thiago's going to show up. One week, Thiago looks like he could be a contender. The next, it's like, who the hell is this guy? Why is he in the UFC? Right? I mean, it's not that bad. But, listen, Mitch Ramirez's game, he's tough, but he's not a better overall fighter than Mike Davis here. Mike Davis, to me, is clearly the better fighter, and if you're getting finished by Prates, who I know is really, really good and is in the welterweight division now, Ramirez is a stout guy in this weight class here, but, Mike Davis is just too good, man. I think he's well-rounded, and I think that Mike Davis actually finds a submission in this fight. I'll say in round number 3. I think that this is competitive for a little bit, but I think the overall skill set of Mike Davis is going to come into play. I think he's better on the feet, and if things get hairy, I think he'll level change, take the fight to the floor, and find a submission or some nasty ground and pound, but I think either way, Mike Davis gets a finish in this matchup. I like Mike Davis a lot, man. I've always been high on him. I want to see him active and get the ball rolling here because I think he's a super talented fighter. He's a huge favorite on this card, which that scares me a little bit, but I think I'll go TKO actually. Maybe it's a submission, but either way, it's going to be a finish, I think, from Mike Davis. He's the better overall fighter. Mitch is nowhere close to the level of Mike Davis. Next, we have Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Walter Walker. This is one of those fights, man. I've went back and forth on this a few times because this is just who is going to implement their game plan better. Because what we've seen from Walter Walker thus far, right? He seems to have this style that could be very troubling for a lot of the, I'm not going to say the top of the heap in the heavyweight division, but that ain't hard to do, right? Towards the back end of heavyweight, it's wide open, right? It's very one-dimensional fighters in the heavyweight division and a lot of just kind of blobs in there, right? And Walter Walker, at one point, he was looking like a blob, right? Comes into the UFC off Titan FC, loses to Lucas Bresky, and it's like, right? Then he goes out there, submits Junior Tafa, submits Dontel Mays. But both of those guys, they're known for having, they're grappling zero. They got zero grappling. Zero. Horrible, wrestling defense. Can't stop any takedowns whatsoever. Right? And Walter Walker, he's got a good ground game, excellent jiu-jitsu skills, and he's gotten himself in much better condition to where if he comes in here and is able to back Kennedy up, take him down, and get the fight to the floor, I think Kennedy's going to be in a world of trouble to where I could absolutely see Walter Walker submitting him, which that's what I was wrestling with, right? He's 27. He's the established heavyweight because Kennedy, he's a guy that spent, a ton of time in the light heavyweight division, right? We know he was able to sub Devin Clark, which Devin Clark ain't that good. Then he's, got finished by Dustin Jacoby, got split decision here against OSP. Then he decided to move up to heavyweight to where he basically got fed 2 incredibly winnable fights. Chris Barnett, who is unbelievably short for the weight class. Yeah, he's super athletic and fun, but he ain't that good. Let's just be honest. He had a layoff, came back, Kennedy beat the hell out of him, comes back, KOs Lucas Bresky. So off of MMA math, Lucas Bresky got finished by Kennedy, and Bresky's beating Walter Walker. Now, I know Walker's gotten himself in better shape, and I think if he gets the fight to the floor, it could be a problem for Kennedy, but we saw Kennedy, if you go back in time, against a guy who's a brawler, has a decent ground game in Ion Cutelaba, and we saw Kennedy put in some serious work on Cutelaba, man. And I know that Kennedy hasn't faced I'd say a super dangerous grappler, but he's coming up from the light heavyweight division to heavyweight. And I know it's been a few fights by now, and typically we could see, guys become a little bit lazier in the heavier weight classes. But I don't think that that's the case with Kennedy. He's got a good team over at Fortis MMA with Saif Saud, and I think that they're going to be very prepared for a very one-dimensional Walter Walker, because if Walter can't get the takedowns, he's getting knocked the hell out, which I don't know that he's just going to be able to go in there willy-nilly, take down Kennedy and Nzechukwu. I know he might be the bigger guy, but I think the way Kennedy will work his angles is going to be a problem, and I think that he gets a knockout, I'll say round number 2 here against Walter Walker. Maybe Walker can get him down, but I don't know that he's going to be able to get Kennedy out of there. I think Kennedy does have a little bit of an underrated ground game. People act like, bro, there's grappling zero. I think Kennedy has more grappling knowledge than what people want to give him credit for, and I don't think he's just super easy to take down. And I think his footwork, his front kicks up the middle, picking and poking from range, I think that is going to be a problem for Walker in terms of closing the distance. I like the range game of Kennedy in this fight, his precision. But again, we've seen Kennedy. He tends to not open up a lot. And now that there's going to be a grappler in front of him, if he doesn't open up enough and Walker's just kind of throwing these sloppy shots out there, I could see him, outstriking Kennedy because Kennedy, isn't letting his combinations go. I don't think that that's going to be a problem in this fight, considering how bad the striking is of Walker. If Walker could get the takedowns, he could definitely find a submission. I like what I've seen from Kennedy at heavyweight at this point. I think he's a step ahead of these guys for sure on the feet, and I don't think his takedown defense is that bad. I think he angles and creates some nice windows of opportunity here. I got him by second round KO over Walter Walker. Very interesting style matchup, though. Next, we have Lauren Murphy versus Eduarda Moura. I mean, this is a weird fight here because Lauren Murphy, she hasn't fought in 2.5 years, right? Now, I kind of thought Lauren Murphy was retired. I didn't even know she was still competing. I saw the booking and I'm like, I didn't even know Lauren Murphy was still around, right? I thought she rode off into the sunset. She's almost 42 years of age. And listen, the inactivity, it's not always like, people I think make a huge deal out of inactivity where it's like, Dominic Cruz, ring rust ain't real, right? And I think that there's a little bit of that, but I think it depends on the fighter. What does concern me is when you're inactive and you're on the older side, almost 42 years of age, right? And the way that Lauren Murphy wins fights, I mean, we've seen it. She's got a decent ground game, good submissions, right? And she kind of just moseys forward, zombie mode. I just don't think that that's enough to get it done against a 31-year-old Eduarda Moura, who we're seeing as a very, very good prospect here, right? She's got, good finishing ability. She has good submission skills. We saw that on the Contender Series when she submitted Silva. We saw her get the ground and pound finish over Ruiz. And the only hiccup here, she lost to Denise Gomes, right? And I think Denise Gomes at this point is better than Lauren Murphy, right? And that was a close one there. And then got the win over Veronica Hardy 7 months ago. The activity, the youth, the well-rounded skill set, maybe Murphy can drag her into the, deep water here, towards the second half of the second round. Maybe we see Moura fade or fades in the third round and Murphy can pull something off. I don't think that that's very likely. I think that's what you're banking on in this fight, given why Moura is such a heavy favorite. I don't know if she's able to finish Lauren Murphy, though. Lauren Murphy's dog tough, right? She's kind of made a name off that, hitting zombie mode. She's got a solid ground game. The inactivity, the age, maybe that could aid to a finish for Moura, but I'm going to say by decision here. I think Eduarda is clearly the better fighter at this point in her career. This is a layup for Moura. Hopefully she could get it done. Moving on. This is an interesting one. We have Jake Matthews versus Chidi Njokuani. Chidi bang bang. Ba 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 ba. There is no one like me. Listen, man, I love that song. But listen, Chidi Njokuani, very dangerous on the feet. Excellent Muay Thai skills, and he's kind of had this little bit of a resurgence, right? He had, was on, a little bit of a losing run there, losing, to Michal Oleksiejczuk, right? But Michal's pretty good, right? Then now in the welterweight division, I thought that maybe that was going to be a mistake from Chidi, right? It's like, okay, you're not doing well in the higher weight class. Let me drop down and try to bully around people that are smaller than me. That's what I think of, right? Kind of a desperation move. Got a split decision win over Reese McKee. Beats Jared Gooden, right? And we've seen Jared Gooden's a pretty well-rounded guy, pretty, decent grappling. Goes out there, finishes Zaleski. That was wildly impressive. We know Zaleski, that's not the easiest guy out there to finish. I was impressed, right? Chidi's got very, very good Muay Thai. Very good in the clinch, very good at range, good long weapons to use. He's 6'3", got an 80-inch reach. He's got a significant height and reach advantage in this weight class, period, not just in this fight. And so he's a very hard guy to deal with. And if you're in the clinch, he's going to bust you up. We've seen he's got nasty knees. From range, he can hurt you. But a lot of these guys that excel with the Muay Thai, there seems to be a hole when it comes to the boxing, right? I'm not saying they can't throw their hands. I'm not saying they have bad defense. But I feel like fighters that have good lateral movement, good footwork, and good timing when it comes to the straight boxing combinations, they can find success against guys that have these Muay Thai styles. And it's very possible that Chidi just goes in there, overwhelms Jake Matthews, gets in his face, because you see this loss against Matthew Semmelsberger, and Jake Matthews, it was a disaster. He's getting rattled all over the place, and I'm like, but that's been the story of Jake Matthews. He's kind of grown up in the UFC. It's like he loses to Semmelsberger, and that hasn't aged well at all. But then he goes out there, subs Darius Flowers, loses to Michael Morales, but goes the distance, right? A guy that's finishing everyone, right? Michael Morales is super dangerous, and now he's riding a 2-fight win streak, beating a long-rangey guy like Phil Rowe, then going out there and beating Francisco Prado, which I was very impressed in this performance from Jake Matthews. If Jake Matthews shows up and fights a smart fight, I believe that he actually beats Chidi Njokuani. And I know a lot of people are high on Chidi, and I get it, right? He's kind of had this resurgence here in the welterweight division. He's fun to watch. He's a finisher. He's game. But I don't like the whole weight cut deal with this guy. It feels like he can't even make weight most of the time. And then when he does, it's like, how's he going to do when someone's able to really put the foot on the gas, take him into that second half of the third round, make it it's the second half of the second round, get into that third round with good pressure, good pace, and a good game plan. I think a guy that trusts his boxing, that has a ton of experience and has some confidence coming into this fight, I think is a little bit of a problem for Chidi Njokuani. I'm going to go Jake Matthews here. I think that he is able to get this one done, I'll say by decision. I'm going to say he outscores and outworks Chidi in this fight, but I expect Jake Matthews to have to deal with some adversity, especially in the first round, given how explosive and how confident I think Chidi will come into this fight here. And we've seen Jake Matthews can get tagged, but I think the lateral movement, the footwork, the hand speed, the boxing, Jake Matthews has underrated boxing, right? And he does have a solid ground game, and I think he's the better overall fighter in terms of the skill set. But I think on the feet, we all know Chidi is just incredibly dangerous, but I think Jake Matthews, if he fights smart, that's the big if, because we've seen with Matthews, it's like you just can't trust which guy's going to show up. But off the past 2 performances, I like what I've seen from Jake Matthews. The boxing, the wrestling, at least threaten with it, make Chidi work, tire him out a little bit, make him feel that weight cut. I like Jake Matthews actually to get this one done here over Chidi Njokuani, but I very much could see Chidi going out there, banging him up, and getting him out of there. But again, Jake Matthews is pretty tough as well. So I am going to side with Jake Matthews in this one, but this is a banger of a fight right here. Moving on, we have Chris Curtis versus Max Griffin. Chris Curtis dropping back down to 170 pounds. He spent some time there before, right? He's a guy that's got a very extensive pro career. And Chris Curtis, it's just, look, he's getting a little bit older and, he's dealt with some injuries, I think, and, just looking for just kind of a fresh opportunity for himself. And I think he finds himself in a very favorable matchup here. My only worry for Chris in this fight is, does the weight cut affect him, right? I know he's made 170 before, but he's been at 185 for a while, right? And he's done pretty well, actually, in this weight class. I know it hasn't looked great, as of late, but, we've seen some things, right? Goes out there, beats Marc-Andre Barriou, and it's like, by split decision. But we just saw what Marc-Andre did to Bruno Silva, putting a damn dent in his head, right? So that was scary. Then goes out there, loses to Brendan Allen. I kind of thought Curtis won the fight, right? So that was another close one. And then goes out there and was landing some good boxing combinations, but was in there with just a super dangerous kickboxer and Roman Kopylov, who I think is one of the better prospects in the UFC right now, especially when it comes to the striking. Chris Curtis is clearly the better fighter here. I know Max Griffin, we saw him, he's landed some good shots in the past. He's got some good power, right? He lost to Neil Magny by split decision, beat Tim Means, lost to Michael Morales, beat Jeremiah Wells, is coming off of that loss, where he got subbed by Michael Chiesa, and Chiesa was landing on this guy on the feet, right? And Chris Curtis, in my opinion, is the much better striker. And we know Max Griffin has power. Remember, I think it was against Ramirez where he, blew his ear apart, man, with that, that was gruesome, right? I mean, Max Griffin definitely has power. He's been around for a while. He cuts nice angles. But he's not a better striker than Chris Curtis, right? I feel like the only thing to be worried about here is the weight cut on the side of Chris Curtis. Does that weaken his chin? Does that cause for any type of fatigue? Those are some things to keep our eye on. I'm just assuming that doesn't happen. And as long as that doesn't happen, this is a very winnable fight for Chris Curtis here. And I actually think that he can find a knockout here. I'm going to say a round number 2 KO from Chris Curtis. He likes to pressure forward, get into the pockets, kind of got that Philly shell type of style. He does have some power in his hands, right? I feel like people sleep on the power of Chris Curtis a little bit. And I think coming down from middleweight to welterweight, I think we're going to see a difference when it comes to the power here. And I like the defense, the way Chris rolls with shots. I think the boxing of Chris Curtis is going to be an issue here for Max Griffin, very winnable fight and a nice opportunity for Chris to bounce back here in a new weight class, in a new division against an older opponent like Max Griffin. Good scenario for Chris Curtis here. I think he's able to get this one done. Moving on. We have Junior Tafa versus Tokkos. Dude, I think this is a horrible fight. Like, I think that this is kind of a horrible fight in the sense that I don't think either of these guys are that good, right? So I feel like it's like, Junior Tafa we've seen, right? If you're just going to go in there and strike with the guy, he's got a chance against anybody, right? But he's moving from heavyweight down to light heavyweight. So first off, how's he going to deal with the weight cut? He's going to make the weight because this isn't a guy that's really had to cut much weight as of recently at least, right? So he's coming down to the 205 division. And Ye may carry some power, but he's going to have to deal with a little bit more of a skilled opponent here in Tokkos. So when I say more skilled, I don't mean by that much, right? I know Tokkos is over there at Hard Knocks 365, Killcliff FC. Listen, Tokkos is not a world beater, right? We've seen in his career before the UFC, he's shown that he's got decent striking. And, since coming into the UFC, got subbed by Umar Sy, lost to Navajo Sterling by decision. I thought he was going to be a layup for Navajo Sterling, and he went out there and showed that he's tough and he can, survive against a really good prospect in Navajo Sterling. But, if he comes in here, can, fatigue Tafa, take him into the, the later rounds, maybe he's able to get him out of there because we've just seen awful cardio on the side of Junior, and we've also seen awful takedown defense. The Tafa brothers, they can't grapple. They can't grapple for shit. Right, and that scares me coming into this, right? And I know that Tafa's coming off of a win here against Sean Sharaf, right? And then he, finished Parker Porter, but these losses, it's like he loses to Mo Usman. That's not good, right? Then he gets finished by Marcos Rogério de Lima. It stepped in on short notice. Calf kicks were a problem. Got heel hooked by Walter Walker, who's a pretty good grappler. If Tokkos mixes this up, has any bit of, we haven't seen the best of grappling, but if he could just pressure Junior Tafa, not get clipped by a shot, grapple with him and tire him out. Maybe he could finish him on the ground. Maybe Tafa just gets so tired that Tokkos could find a TKO on the feet. But I don't know. Honestly, in this fight. I really don't know. I feel like Tokkos could pull this off, but I don't think highly of Tokkos. I don't think highly of Junior Tafa, but I'm just going to go with the guy that has the crazy KO power, and I think at the end of the day is a better overall striker than Tokkos, but I think Tafa's got to get it down in round number one. Maybe him, having to cut weight, maybe that just forces him to be in better shape, hopefully. But I think Tafa is much more dangerous on the feet. But I feel like if Tokkos fights smart, mixes in the takedowns, wears them out, and then strikes them later in the fight, Tokkos could definitely win, but I think that Tafa is going to catch him in the first round, and in my opinion, he has to in order to win this fight, because while, Tokkos isn't very good, Tafa ain't shit either. So I like Tafa, though. He's fun. I like his style, and if you don't mix in the grappling at all, this guy has a good shot against anybody, considering how dangerous of a striker he is with that power. Give me Junior Tafa by first round knockout here. This is a very winnable fight for Junior in a new weight class. Next, we got Vitor Petrino versus Austin Lane. This should be, if Vitor Petrino, honestly, if he loses to Austin Lane, just cut him from the roster. That's how I feel about it, man. Like, Vitor Petrino, he was a guy that was looking real dangerous, right? He was rattling off some wins, sub Marcin Proknia, finished Modestas Bukauskas, got the decision win over Tyson Pedro, but I noticed a problem in this Pedro fight. And that was the fact that Vitor, he's a big, strong guy, right? I don't think that he's going to be very undersized at heavyweight in terms of he's going to be very strong in this weight class. He's going to have, I think, a speed advantage and a skill advantage. We see that, right, when fighters move up weight classes, especially from light heavyweight to heavyweight. And in this Tyson Pedro fight, I noticed he just has a very hard time pulling the trigger, right? He's too hesitant, dancing around. I think that this was the last fight that we saw for Tyson Pedro, right? And he didn't look like himself in there. And Vitor Petrino was landing shots, but just could not pull the trigger. Not enough activity. Goes out there, just dumb decision. Tries to shoot a takedown on an older, washed out Anthony Smith. I'm like, why aren't you trying to bang this guy up from the outside? Utilize your reach, utilize your power, utilize your kicks. Nope, decides to dive into a guillotine and get submitted. Just absolutely dumb. And then comes out there against Dustin Jacoby and gets brutally KO'd by a vicious right hand from Dustin Jacoby. But we've seen a nice resurgence from Dustin, right? Former Glory kickboxer. He's super technical in there, very tactical. That's a nightmare for a young guy who has a hard time pulling the trigger in Vitor Petrino. Frustrate him, get him to throw a big shot, time it, knock him out. That's what Dustin Jacoby did. Fought a perfect fight. Vitor Petrino must win this fight. If he does not win this fight, cut him from the damn roster. And he should get Austin Lane out of there in the first round. Like, I know Austin Lane is, always a former football player. And I think he was on like the practice squad or whatever, training camp, something for, I think it was like the Jaguars, whatever. Austin Lane's a decent athlete, right? He's a big guy. But what we've seen, this guy, he got knocked out by Justin Tafa, got finished by Janata Deniz, beat Rebelis Despain, who had, this guy grappling zero. He had zero grappling, Rebelis Despain. Super dangerous on the feet, zero grappling. Goes out there, gets finished by Mario Pinto. Austin Lane is chinny. He's not good on the feet. Of course, he has power. He's a heavyweight. He needs to get the fight to the floor. And I don't think he's a better grappler than Vitor Petrino. Vitor, this is an absolute layup. If you do not win this fight, cut him from the damn roster. He's a better overall fighter. He should not lose this fight. He should knock out Austin Lane in the first round. He's more technical. He's faster. He has a better overall skill set. Hell, Petrino's probably a better grappler than him. Lane does nothing better than Vitor, other than he's just a big guy. Vitor should win this fight easily and starch Austin Lane in round number 1. Give me Vitor Petrino by KO. Next, we have Nate Landwehr versus Morgan Charriere. I've went back and forth on this one, man. I'm just not sold on Morgan Charriere. I'm not sold on this guy at all. And I know, was he in like a rap video or something? And he's got some clout over there in France, right? France, woo, they like this guy. And I like his style. I think he's well-rounded. I think he's fun. I think he's flashy. He's sharp. He's clean. But we saw his last time out, he got absolutely destroyed by Nathaniel Wood. Got destroyed, right? And I know Nathaniel Wood, he's actually a lot more technical than what people want to give him credit for. But what we've seen from Morgan, right, goes out there, finishes Gabriel Miranda with a left hook. Big whoop. Gabriel Miranda, right, goes out there, loses to Chepe Mariscal by split decision. I thought he won this fight. Knocks out Nzechukwu, however you say his last name, by body kicks. And we've seen prior to getting to the UFC, the guy's good, man. He's dangerous on the feet. He's got a solid ground game. I think he's the better overall fighter here. The problem, you see that bicep? You got a motivated Nate Landwehr who's coming off of just an absolute beatdown to where he got destroyed by Doo Ho Choi, right? Now, Choi's a pretty good fighter, right? Very, very good on the feet, right? Got destroyed, right? He couldn't match the speed of Choi, and I feel like at this point in his career, right, some of these wins have actually aged really well. Beat David Onama. We've seen some good things from Nate Landwehr. He's got a well-rounded skill set, right? He's got that dog in him, which I feel like that's what he's going to try to rely on in this fight, and I mean, at almost, 37 years of age, right? He's got that, he's got the grit, he's got the tenacity, he's got a well-rounded skill set. I absolutely think that Nate Landwehr could pull this off. But I think given at 29 years of age, the speed, the technicalities, that is all on the side of Morgan Charriere, as long as he does not get caught. As long as he doesn't brawl. Morgan should win this fight, shouldn't he? I mean, I'm not high on Morgan Charriere at all, but I'm also not high on Nate Landwehr. I know Nate's fun. He's, going to be fighting in Tennessee, his home state. He's going to be motivated. He's going to have the crowd on his side. He's fun. Nate Landwehr is always in a scrap, man. He's going to bring it. But I think Morgan Charriere, he should win this fight all day long. He's the better fighter in terms of the overall skill set. And honestly, I'm going to say decision. I think it's going to be very hard to get Nate Landwehr out of there in Tennessee. Maybe, Charriere lands a good clean shot that, Landwehr just doesn't see coming or accumulates the damage to where we get a stoppage. But as long as he doesn't get pulled into an absolute dogfight, which that's possible. Because we've seen Morgan, he got caught multiple times by Nathaniel Wood. We've seen he can get into a back and forth scrap. And like I said, I'm not sold on Morgan Charriere at all. I think he's overhyped, overrated. But given where Landwehr's at, it's taken a lot of damage. Right, I think he's got a well-rounded skill set. He can submit you. He can land good shots on the feet. He had a nice comeback win against Jamal Emmers, but he's getting rocked in all these fights. He's getting rocked in all these fights. And I feel like if you're getting rocked by Morgan Charriere, who's pretty clean, speedy, fast, good elusive movement on the outside, I feel like that's going to be a problem for Nate, who's going to come in here looking to brawl. Maybe that pans out for him, but right now, I think Morgan Charriere is the better overall fighter. But again, I could very much see Nate Landwehr pulling this off, considering I don't think Morgan Charriere is that good. But given where Landwehr is at in his career, taking a ton of damage, I just think that Morgan is the better overall fighter at this point in time. Moving on, we have Calvin Kattar versus Steve Garcia. I went back and forth on this one, man, because Steve Garcia, I like this guy. He's dangerous. He's devastating. He's got outstanding power in that left hand. Very dangerous southpaw. Good right hook. I mean, he's very explosive. And not only is he explosive, he's got a well-rounded skill set. He's got good ground and pound. He's got a good ground game. And if he needs to mix in the takedowns, he will do so. And he's a strong guy for this weight class, right? He's a big guy for the featherweight division at 6 foot with a 73-inch reach. But in this fight, that isn't really a factor considering Calvin Kattar's always been one of the taller, longer guys for this division at 5'11 with a 72-inch reach. And while Steve Garcia is on, I think it's a 5 KO win streak, right? Knocking out Chase Hooper, where now Chase Hooper, we've seen him completely level up, and he's moved up to the lightweight division. Got the finish here. Knocks out Melky Costa. That win has aged pretty well. Knocks out Choi. Gets the finish over Kyle Nelson, which I think Kyle Nelson's a pretty underrated fighter, so that was a good win. Steve Garcia is a big hitter. He's a problem. Dangerous boxing. Well-rounded skill set. And he's not some guy that's like, oh, man, this would be a fraud check, because Steve Garcia, he's shown that he's got a well-rounded skill set, right? And he's showing that he's got some experience on his side now, right? And he's going in there beating some pretty good fighters. But then you have Calvin Kattar, who is one of my favorite featherweights of all time, right? And I feel like a lot of people, they're forgetting Calvin Kattar, man. They're forgetting about this guy. And if you go through this rough patch that he's had here, right? He didn't knock him out, but beat the hell out of Giga Chikadze almost 4 years ago. Loses to Josh Emmett by split decision. I thought Kattar won this fight. A lot of people thought Kattar won this fight. Goes out there, knee injury against Arnold Allen. There's an asterisk. Goes out there. Okay, so he got dominated by one of the better grapplers we've ever seen at 135 pounds. One of the best grapplers right now at 145. Hindsight, horrible matchup for Calvin Kattar. Goes out there, gets outpointed by Yusuf Salau, who's Mr. Speedy Gonzalez in there. Jabbing and leg kicking, running around the octagon. Super frustrating fight for Calvin Kattar. But we're also seeing Yusuf Salau's pretty damn good. He's a hard guy to deal with, right? So I feel like people are just kind of writing off Calvin Kattar like he's just completely washed. He's done, right? Calvin Kattar's got a granite chin, dude. Got battered around by Max Holloway, right? And still was on his feet, right? I don't even know how he was still on his feet. Calvin Kattar's got good boxing, good high guard defense, excellent jab, good right hand, nasty uppercuts, and his elbows. I call them elbows because they're nasty. He'll pressure forward, land those elbows. He's got really good cardio, has good wrestling of his own, good takedown defense, unless he's in there against Aljo. Right, I mean, this is a guy that I remember going in there and outscoring Dan Ige, knocking out Jeremy Stevens with a nasty elbow, beating up on Shane Burgos. And when I watch the film, man, I very much see why people are high on Steve Garcia. I am too. He's dangerous. Crazy power. Could mix into grappling. Right, could land that big shot. And it's like, oh, Calvin, 37, right, coming off the injury. Maybe he's not the same guy. Sure, that's a possibility. But I think if you're a guy like Steve Garcia, who goes in there, he's been knocked out before. And if you want war and you want to show up against Calvin Kattar's over there saying, we want war with him. You know what I'm saying? This is the leader of the New England cartel, dog. You want the OG, you get Calvin Kattar, the Boston finisher. I think Steve Garcia is a completely different style of opponent than what Calvin's been dealing with. Steve Garcia is not an Aljamain Sterling on the ground. He's not a Yusuf Zalal that's going to sprint around the octagon and be Speedy Gonzalez for 15 minutes. Steve Garcia is going to move forward. He's going to be in range. Right, and we saw Calvin Kattar against, I know it's a different kind of style, right? Shane Burgos is an orthodox style of opponent. Right, I'm not saying Burgos beats Garcia, but if you want to move into range and challenge Calvin Kattar, you can run into some problems. And I think the pace of Calvin Kattar will eventually pay off. I think the elbows, the jab, if he fights behind a good high guard and a jab and can kind of weather maybe an early storm, I think people are sleeping on Calvin Kattar here, man. Maybe I'm a homer and I'm just kind of stuck in the past here. I think Calvin Kattar wins this fight. I think he gets a knockout. I think Calvin Kattar gets a finish. I do, man. I've been watching the tape, and yeah, I definitely see where Steve Garcia could go in there. He could be the first person to KO Kattar. I realize that. He could just land so much damage that it's like, oh, man, Steve Garcia is that damn good. Kattar kind of washed, but Garcia's just that good. Sure, that's a possibility. Garcia's got a good straight left hand. Big right hook. He's powerful, but he gets a little wild. he gets a little wild. And if you want to move forward into range against a guy that's got good, sharp, straight shots down the pipe like Calvin Kattar with those nasty elbows that he times on the way in and doesn't pressure stupidly, right? Calvin Kattar, when he applies pressure, he's doing it smartly, angling off, switching stances, killing that leg kick. You know, he's doing some work with Firas Zahabi, which I think was good for him. When he started to have a little bit more success against UFC Salau, but Garcia is not like that. He's not going to be running around the octagon the whole time. And if he is, that's not his style. I think he moves forward, looks to cause a car wreck. I think that's a problem waiting to happen. I think the elbows, the pressure, the straight shots down the middle of Calvin Kattar, I think they pay off. This is a much different style of opponent for Calvin Kattar, and I think it's a very winnable fight. It's very dangerous, for sure. Steve Garcia, he just might be that damn good. And I'm high on this guy. I think he's very dangerous. But I feel like people are forgetting about Calvin Kattar, man. Y'all must have forgot. This is a good boxer. Okay, it's just because he got dotted up by Max Holloway. This guy's got good hands, good straight jab, can fire it from all angles, good straight right hand, mixes shots up well to the body. He's added a little bit of a leg kick into his game, not much of a factor because this is an open stance battle. Maybe the damage is too much. Maybe the power and speed of Garcia is too much. We've seen Garcia chinned in the past. You're going in there against a very, very sharp striker in Calvin Kattar, a guy with a ton of experience, nasty elbows to where he can make Garcia pay for that overzealous pressure. I actually like Calvin Kattar in this fight. I do. Maybe I'm overlooking it. Maybe I'm, kind of just hoping for the OG to pull something off here. But stylistically, when I watch this, if Calvin's done his homework like what I'm doing here, looking at the tape, seeing how kind of wild Garcia gets at times, I think Calvin Kattar can beat this guy. I really do, man. And I think Calvin Kattar can get back in the win column. These losses, they're not that bad. They're not. Yusuf Zalal, Speedy Gonzalez, Aljamain Sterling, dominating grappler. Had the injury against Arnold Allen. I thought he beat Josh Emmett over the course of 5 rounds. That's a power hitter. He's got more one-shot KO power than Garcia. Maybe not as technical as Steve. Remember when he went in there and beat up on Giga Chikadze? Super dynamic striker. I think if Calvin Kattar comes in here, fights smart, I think he wins this fight, man. And I honestly think maybe it's a decision, right? But given how Garcia fights, I feel like Kattar will catch him with a shot. And if he doesn't catch him in an exchange, I think Garcia may fade as the fight plays out. The pressure, the elbows, the output of Kattar will add up to where he can maybe get a stoppage in there. Maybe this goes to decision. I think that this is a fire fight, potential fight of the night right here. Give me the Boston finisher, one of the OGs, and Calvin Kattar. You want war? Calvin Kattar's the type of dude that loves that type of challenge. I think he gets it done. Wonderboy Thompson. Stephen Thompson versus Gabriel Bonfim. A few years ago, if you booked this fight, I think Wonderboy Thompson over the course of 15 minutes can stick and move, frustrate Gabriel Bonfim, and outstrike him and possibly win this, right? Because Wonderboy actually, he wasn't looking that bad against Buckley, right? And we've seen how good Buckley is, super dangerous. Wonderboy was kind of picking him apart from the outside, right? And if he doesn't get knocked out, he may win on the judges' scorecards. I don't remember what the scorecards were, but Wonderboy was fighting a good fight. He could go in there and just straight kickbox with anybody, even at 42 years of age. He absolutely could. But again, I've always said this. Jan Blachowicz, he can fight till he's 80, right? That slow, flat-footed, not relying on a ton of movement, high guard, just kind of moseying forward. But when you're one of these elusive guys with your hands down, you're kind of bouncing around all over the place, relying on eyesight, reflexes, all this movement, it just takes one little step for that to fade and everything changes. And I don't think that we've necessarily seen that from Wonderboy Thompson, but he did get submitted by Shavkat Rakhmonov, big whoop, one of the more dangerous guys in the division, goes out there, finishes Kevin Holland. But again, the referee had to stop in. Wonderboy got rocked really bad earlier in the fight, and I think Holland actually broke his right hand. I was there for that fight, and you could clearly see a shift on the side of Holland. But Wonderboy was getting tagged. Loses to Bilal Muhammad, right? And we've seen that has been the avenue against Gilbert Burns. If you can mix in the grappling, get in on Wonderboy's hips, take him down, make him hesitant, it just doesn't allow Wonderboy to get comfortable on the feet, and he doesn't have the power to really knock you out, at least with his hands, right? I know he's got some pop in his kicks, where he's very dynamic with the striking, and he's a puzzle, right? And Gabriel Bonfim, while he's, 17-1 as a pro, right? His only loss was he got starched by Nicholas Dalby. He had some good moments in that fight. But outside of that, this guy's a serious submission threat, man. Super dangerous on the ground, right? Submitted Chaos Williams, right? But again, Chaos moves forward, throws these big wild shots, gives you those opportunities to time a takedown. And look, Bonfim is striking. I think it's decent. I don't think it's great. I think it's decent. Decent little left hook, decent right hand. I don't think he holds a candle to Wonderboy on the feet. I don't think that he can really land anything on the feet to gain the respect of Wonderboy whatsoever. But we've seen the blueprint here. And I think the only thing I worry about for Bonfim is this is, you're in there with Wonderboy, and it's a puzzle with Stephen Thompson, right? And I know Bonfim, 17-1, he's got some experience, but in terms of the UFC, this is a nice step up here. A guy that is a true veteran in Wonderboy Thompson, super crafty out there, very savvy, right? And I feel like maybe the range and some of the kicks, and maybe there could be some issues here for Bonfim. I know Wonderboy's old, but, the way he looked against Buckley, I could see that being a problem for Bonfim. But at the end of the day, if Bonfim pressures forward, he's not going to be really worried about the power from Wonderboy Thompson in the hands. I think if he crushes his space, pressures him, we've seen that Wonderboy just has a problem with that, man. And Gabriel Bonfim is not some guy that is just going to take you down and hold you, man. He has dangerous submissions. Dangerous submissions. And if he's able to get a hold of anything, you got to be very careful working back up to your feet. And we've seen Wonderboy against Bilal Muhammad. Right? You can kind of just get back to your feet. You're not worried about the submission threat. With Gilbert Burns, if you're in Gilbert's, guard, that's where he could be dangerous. Bonfim is dangerous everywhere when it comes to MMA jiu-jitsu. I think he pressures Wonderboy, backs him up against the fence, crushes the space, and is able to maybe land a couple shots to gain the respect of Wonderboy because his hands are so low, which can help get those underhooks, defend takedowns. I just think that the young Bonfim with a very dangerous submission threat and improved striking and does have some sneaky power if you're not careful. I think that the Dalby loss was a good learning opportunity for Gabriel Bonfim. He's training with his brother. They got a very, very good camp over there. They're dangerous. I like Gabriel Bonfim, man. His submission game is very, very dangerous. His striking is coming along. Obviously not as good as Wonderboy, but a 42-year-old Wonderboy, I don't know, man. Steep hill to climb. If he can keep it on the feet, of course, Wonderboy has a chance. Maybe he could outstrike him if he can stop the takedowns. I just find that really hard to believe against a very dangerous submission threat in Gabriel Bonfim. I was impressed with how easily he put away Chaos Williams. I know this is a big step up here, but I think Bonfim is the real deal, man. I think he gets a sub over Wonderboy. Last but not least, the main event. We have Derrick Lewis versus Tallison Teixiera. In a very frail heavyweight division, a division that essentially has zero prospects. Nobody in any of the prospects, they kind of get fraud checked. They run into a Marcin Tybura. They run into some of those guys, and they just show that they have no grappling or there's always a hole somewhere. One of the few prospects that we're seeing in the heavyweight division that seems like he has everything is Tallison Teixiera. 25 years of age. He's a skyscraper, 6'7", 83-inch reach. Now, I will say, he doesn't use his reach very well, right? And if you need proof, go back and watch his Contender Series fight against Arthur Lopez. I know he got the finish, but he was getting tagged. Some good shots were landing on him, and he's got a very good chin. That's an underrated thing about him, but you can't be relying on your chin against the knockout king in Derrick Lewis, right? If Derrick Lewis hits you with that right hand, he's knocking anybody on the planet out. That's a fact, but he's got to land it. Right, and I think Tallison Teixiera, what we've seen prior to the UFC, fought over in LFA. This guy, I think every fight has ended in the first round, right? Goes out there, and I wasn't sure on this guy, right? I'm like, okay, another heavyweight prospect. They're going to hype him up. They give him Justin Tafa. I'm like, that's a bigger step up than what this guy's been fighting, and he just went out there and absolutely melted Justin Tafa. Destroyed him. Raced across the octagon, acted like he didn't care that Tafa had power. That's a scary dude. It's a very scary dude, but he doesn't utilize his reach. He's got good straight shots down the middle, good straight jab, good straight right hand, much better technique than Derrick Lewis. But it's one of those things with Derrick Lewis. It's like Teixeira, he's got the jiu-jitsu, he's got the wrestling, the technique, the cardio, all that said, Derrick Lewis by KO. It feels like that's a real possibility here. And I did pick Derrick Lewis to win his last fight over Rogerio Nascimento. But Tallison Teixiera is much better than Nascimento, right? And he goes out there, he loses to Almeida. Almeida laid on him for 25 minutes. It's a hard matchup. Beat Rogerio de Lima where he rode the bicycle across the octagon and then got off and threw the flying knee. You guys have seen that meme? Derrick Lewis is dangerous. When he's feeling it, he kind of plays possum in there, grabs his stomach. I don't know if he's got a shit or whatever's going on. Baits you in so he can throw a right hand. He's got that little switch kick that he throws. He's got a knee. right? But Derrick Lewis, it's really about the right hand and the uppercut. Teixeira, I don't think, is going to be shooting any takedowns. He's not going to be dipping his head that low. He could keep his head up high to avoid that, right? So it would really be Lewis just timing a right hand and knocking him out, which I think is very possible. That's possible in any Derrick Lewis fight. But Tallison Teixiera, man, I just don't think that he's some heavyweight prospect like what we've been seeing. I think that this guy's the real deal. I think he's dangerous. I mean, when you race across the octagon and act like Tafa doesn't have power and you just smoke him like that, he's dangerous in the clinch. Nasty elbows. And we've seen, remember Tai Tuivasa in the clinch against Derrick Lewis? Folded him, melted him. And we've seen Derrick Lewis, you can give it, if you can put that adversity on him early, he kind of fades, kind of withers away. And there's the shot that he lands that KO, for sure. But the young guy here that's dangerous, like I said, doesn't utilize his range the best, where I could see him definitely getting caught if he's not careful. But I think that the straight shots down the pipe are going to be the weapon of destruction here. I think Tallison Teixiera is going to be cautious because of the power of Lewis, but I don't know. This guy doesn't seem like he has respect for anybody in terms of their power in the heavyweight division. I think this guy just really believes in his skill set. He's going to race across there, tag Lewis early, push him up against the fence, land some of those elbows, and get his ass out of there. Either way, this I don't think makes it out of the first round whatsoever. And I think Teixeira is probably the better grappler. I know Lewis actually, has shown he has a little bit of grappling at times, but we see Derrick fade. And it's just like flip of a coin if Derrick Lewis is going to look like Derrick Lewis in there or not. Sometimes it looks like he doesn't even want to be in there. Looks like he'd rather be, I don't know. Looks tired, looks lethargic. Big fight here for Derrick Lewis, right? To go out there, stop a young prospect here, but a huge fight for Tallison Teixiera. Big step up in competition. Huge name to add to his resume. A true fan favorite in Derrick Lewis. I mean, part of me wants to see Lewis get the TKO so he could just drop his drawers and moon the crowd again, right? I love his post-fight interviews. They're always entertaining. They're always funny. Get your popcorn ready. But unfortunately, I don't think we get that in this fight. Unless Teixeira fights like an idiot, rushes to the inside, right? And this is 5 rounds, right? For heavyweights, please don't make it go 5. Hopefully this ends in the first round. I think it does. I think Teixeira lands some good straight shots down the middle, pushes him up against the fence if it gets that far, and lands some good elbows and gets him out of there. I got Teixeira by first round knockout. But if he's not responsible defensively, I could very much see Lewis landing a right hand and knock him out. That's kind of what you're banking on for Derrick to get it done. Either way, someone gets KO'd in round number 1, in my opinion. But if you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a like, comment what you think down below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss an upload. I would greatly appreciate it. See you next time.